This key opens every approved door.
Maybe wait.
No, he's refusing compliance. Is this legal?
Take the key out of my lock. This is my home.
Then prove it.
We have an access notice.
You have paper. You don't get to hide behind doors. I'm standing in it.
He's obstructing.
Open up, or I'll have 911 remove you.
Let's keep this procedural.
Why does she have a key? Yourself with
No,
issue.
you are making a record.
It's supposed to turn.
Stop, please. Remove it.
He changed the lock.
I changed to nothing.
Wait, open it.
There is no emergency.
I'm calling emergency services.
Tell them exactly what you did. Karen, don't say
He's
it's wrong.
threatening us. I said remove the key. Quiet.
Let the call record everything.
Address of your emergency?
A man is occupying a residence and refusing access.
I am inside my home. Black homeowner. County. Say sheriff? Units are en route.
He's the problem.
Karen, give me the keys.
They hurt his name.
This is still my authority. Deputy, stop talking.
The first sound was metal scratching inside my front door. Then came the woman's voice on the porch. Open up, or I'll have 911 remove you. Her HOA master key had failed, and somehow that made me the criminal. What kind of neighborhood gives one woman a key to homes she does not own? Why did the dispatcher go silent when she heard my name? And why did every deputy suddenly stop talking when the quiet black man in muddy work boots stepped into the light? Nobody on that porch knew why I had come home early, or what losing that house would cost me. Stay with this story, because the call meant to throw me out became the call that exposed Echo Ridge. The key scraped again, slower this time, as if the lock could be shamed into obeying. Isaiah Mercer stood inside his hallway, one palm on the inner door. The storm door was latched. Beyond its glass, Karen Wells twisted the silver key until her knuckles lost color. "It's not turning," Mark Tiller said. "It will," Karen snapped. These keys were approved before he ever showed up. Isaiah looked past them. Mrs. Ellis Moore had stopped by her mailbox, a grocery bag on one wrist. Two neighbors held phones low. A sprinkler ticked against the curb. "Ma'am," Isaiah said, "take the key out of my door." Karen smiled. "Your door? That's what we're establishing." Behind him, the hall smelled of lemon oil and cedar. A photograph hung beside the stairs. Naomi laughing with her mother under the garden arch. Karen's shoulder blocked half. "You were notified," Karen said, louder for the sidewalk. "You refused inspection. You refused compliance. I gave you my name. You gave me an attitude." Mark tucked his clipboard closer. "Karen, maybe wait for counsel." "No." She pulled the key free with a metallic squeal. "He doesn't get to hide after making this unsafe." Isaiah glanced at the brass screw near the latch. He had replaced it that morning because the plate had loosened. His thumb still carried grease. Karen lifted her phone. Mrs. Moore stepped forward. "Karen, maybe don't call." "He is forcing this," Karen said, and tapped the screen. The 911 line clicked through on speaker. "Echo County Emergency Services. Address of your emergency." Karen's voice changed, soft and practiced. "I'm at 118 Willow Bend. I'm HOA president, and we have a man occupying a residence, refusing access and behaving in a threatening manner." A dry leaf trembled against the weather strip each time she spoke. "Is anyone injured?" the dispatcher asked. "Not yet." "Is there a weapon visible?" "No, but he is blocking entry." "I am inside my home," Isaiah said. Karen covered the phone, though speaker was on. "Do not interrupt an emergency call." The dispatcher paused. "Sir, can I have your name?" Karen gave a small laugh. "He'll give you whatever name he gave us." Isaiah leaned toward the phone. His voice stayed low enough that the neighbors had to stop shifting to hear it. "Isaiah Nathaniel Mercer." The porch changed before anyone admitted it had. Karen's thumb froze above the screen. Mark's pen stopped tapping. On the line, the dispatcher took one breath, then the keyboard sounds vanished. "Sir," she said carefully, "can you confirm your date of birth?" Karen blinked. "Why ask him that? I'm the caller." Isaiah gave the date. Another pause. Evening light slid down the glass until Karen's reflection hovered over his wife's photograph. "Mr. Mercer," the dispatcher said, no longer following her script. "Please remain where you are. Units are en route." "I'm not leaving my doorway," Isaiah said. Karen pointed with the key trapped between her fingers. "You hear that? They told you to stay right there." But Mrs. Moore had heard the other thing. So had Mark. So had the neighbors with phones. From the end of Willow Bend came the soft rise of siren, and Karen looked down at the useless master key as if it had suddenly become evidence. At 6:42 that morning, Isaiah Mercer had the gate open with one knee and a screwdriver between his teeth. The hinge had started whining before sunrise, a thin sound that crossed Willow Bend whenever the wind pushed the little white gate. He had meant to fix it in spring. Then spring became court days and one long summer where he still reached for his wife's mug before remembering. His phone buzzed on the porch rail. "Morning, baby," he said. "Please tell me you're not climbing something," Naomi said. "I'm arguing with a hinge. The hinge is losing." "You sleep?" "Enough." "That means no." Isaiah tightened the lower screw. Cold wood pressed his knuckles. A faded blue ribbon, tied by his wife after they moved in, brushed his wrist. The color had nearly washed out, but he had never untied it. Some mornings it looked like nothing. Some mornings it held the whole house together. Across the lawn, every mailbox wore the same dark green paint. A white SUV rolled past slowly. Karen Wells turned her head just enough to see him, and not enough to wave. "The HOA sent another email," Naomi said. "It came to Mom's old account." The screwdriver stopped. What did it say? "Exterior neglect, unauthorized occupancy review, failure to attend community standards meeting." She swallowed. They still addressed it to her. The hinge clicked under his hand. "Forward it." "I did. And Dad?" "Mom kept a folder for a reason." He looked at the ribbon, stiff with dust and rain. "I know." By 8:15, Isaiah had swept red leaves from the walkway and carried coffee onto the porch. The white SUV returned, followed by a gray sedan. Karen stepped out in cream slacks, hair fixed against the breeze, a tablet under her arm. Mark Tiller came behind her with a leather binder and the careful smile of a man paid to look reasonable. Karen stopped at the curb and photographed the gate. "Can I help you?" Isaiah asked. "That depends," she said. "Are you the tenant, the caretaker, or the relative ignoring notices?" Mark checked the house number. 118. "I own this house," Isaiah said. Karen made a small sound through her nose. "Ownership is a legal condition, Mr. Mercer." "Mr. Mercer, compliance is a community condition." Mark opened the binder. "We're documenting deviations, gate hardware, lawn edge, faded material." Isaiah followed his pen to the ribbon. "My wife tied that there." Karen looked at it then, away. Visible items still need approval. Only the mower 2 houses down filled the street. Deborah Lowell paused beside her trash bin, watching without stepping closer. "You can send your notice by mail," Isaiah said. "We have," Karen replied. "Silence reads as refusal." "Silence reads as silence." Mark's smile tightened. Karen lifted the tablet. The camera click landed hard in the cool air. "Then we move to the next step." "What step?" She studied the repaired hinge, the ribbon, then the black man in work boots behind his own gate. The one that teaches people the rules before they damage the neighborhood. When the SUV pulled away, Isaiah stayed by the gate until sprinklers and birdsong returned. His phone buzzed with Naomi's forwarded email, and under the subject line, one phrase sat in bold: Access may be required. At 9:03, the conference room behind the Echo Ridge clubhouse smelled of coffee and lemon cleaner. Karen Wells laid Isaiah's gate photo in the center of the polished table. She had circled the faded ribbon with a red marker so hard the paper buckled. "This is not about a ribbon," Thomas Reed said. "It is never about one ribbon," Karen replied. "It is about the first visible refusal." Glenda Rose adjusted her pearl necklace. "The grass looks edged." Mark Tiller opened his binder. Colored tabs divided the pages. Notices, fines, access, liens. Pattern is the issue. No email response. No meeting attendance. No verified occupancy. "He said he owned it," Thomas said. "He said a lot from behind a gate." Monica Vale brought in 4 envelopes. The HOA secretary was 39, small-framed, and kept pulling her sleeves over her wrists. "Certified notices," she said, "and the old access list." Mark took the list first. Karen watched him. Read the line. He cleared his throat. "Homes enrolled before 2018 may be subject to emergency entry for safety, maintenance, or compliance verification under board authorization." Thomas frowned. "Compliance verification? I don't remember voting on that." "You were on medical leave," Glenda said. "I was gone 2 weeks." Karen tapped the photo. The widow signed the packet. "Mrs. Mercer signed a fire access consent form," Thomas said, "after her kitchen alarm kept misfiring." Mark's pen stopped. "Do you have it?" Thomas looked down. "No." "Then we use the record we have." Karen connected her tablet to the wall screen. Images appeared. Isaiah's porch, the side fence, muddy boots beside a watering can. Glenda leaned back. "Did you take that from the sidewalk?" "Common view," Karen said. "It looks like through the fence." "It shows neglect." Thomas pushed the picture back. "It shows a man fixing something." Karen's smile thinned. "That is how these situations begin. Quiet defiance. Then others ask why rules apply." Mark turned to a form. "We can find the decoration, request proof of ownership, and schedule an interior inspection." "Interior?" Glenda asked. "The roofline stain may indicate water damage." "There is no roofline stain." He slid another image forward. A brown shadow crossed the gutter. "That is a leaf shadow," Thomas said. Karen did not look at him. "Schedule it." The air conditioner kicked on. On the screen, Isaiah stood half-turned from his gate, phone in hand. "Does anyone want responsibility if something happens in that house?" Karen asked. "Unauthorized occupant. Unsafe utilities. Abandonment." "He answered the door," Thomas said. "He answered selectively." Glenda folded her hands. "Maybe one more letter." "We have sent enough." Karen's voice stayed calm. "People mistake patience for permission." Mark nodded. "I'll prepare the access notice." Thomas reached for the list. "I want counsel to review that." Karen placed her palm on the page. "Noted," she said. The vote passed 3-1, with Glenda abstaining quietly. After they left, Monica gathered the cups. A printed photo had slipped under the table. Isaiah's front door, circled in red. She picked it up, stared at the mark around the lock, and folded it once into the wrong folder. By 10:27, the dew had not left the porch rail. Isaiah set the last screw into the hinge and wiped his fingers on a rag. The gate opened without crying. Then the white SUV stopped at the curb, crushing wet leaves. Karen stepped out with a clipboard. Mark stayed in the passenger seat. "Mr. Mercer," she called, "we need to resolve your status." "My status?" "Occupant, tenant, contractor. I prefer homeowner." Karen came up the path without being invited. Her perfume cut through the smell of wet wood. Then prove it. He went inside and returned with a folder. Mrs. Moore's curtain shifted across the street. Deborah Lowell paused by her recycling bin. Isaiah laid papers on the porch table. Deed, tax record, insurance. Karen pinched the top sheet by one corner. A bead of dew slid from the rail and darkened the edge. These are copies. County copies. Anyone can print things. Not with the seal. She lowered the page before reading the second line. You understand why this raises concerns? No? Mark looked up. Karen's smile stayed fixed. The owner stops appearing. Then a man no one recognizes makes changes and refuses communication. My wife died, Isaiah said. The sprinkler next door clicked twice. Mrs. Moore lowered her grocery bag. Karen blinked. I'm sorry for your loss. That does not suspend standards. Isaiah slid another paper forward. Her name is still on some records. Convenient. Deborah's bin lid fell shut. Isaiah rested 2 fingers on the damp corner of the deed. Read it. I don't take legal instruction on a porch. It is my porch. Karen turned enough for the sidewalk to hear. Every reasonable request becomes confrontation. Mark got out. Karen, take the papers for review. No, Isaiah said. Request copies from the county. Then let me photograph them, Mark said. Isaiah closed the folder. The clap moved through the porch like a latch catching. Karen looked past his shoulder. What are you hiding inside? A kitchen, stairs, boxes. Then inspection should be simple. No. 3 neighbors stopped pretending to walk. Karen lowered the clipboard. Do you know what happens when an owner refuses access under emergency provisions? There is no emergency. We are not required to wait for one. Isaiah picked up the deed. The wet corner sagged. He wiped it once with his thumb. My wife signed a fire access form after a faulty alarm, he said. Not a permission slip for you. Karen's jaw tightened. You don't know what she signed. I was standing beside her. From the sidewalk, Mrs. Moore said, Karen, I remember the fire truck. Karen did not turn. Ellis, don't involve yourself in board matters. Mrs. Moore's mouth closed. Mark made a note. Isaiah saw it. What did you write? Interaction summary. Write that I offered proof and you refused to read it. Karen stepped down 1 stair. For the record, Mr. Mercer has declined cooperative verification. Further action will be taken. Isaiah stayed by the table. You tried to turn my wife's signature into your key. The street went thin and quiet. Karen walked back to the SUV. Before getting in, she took one more picture. Isaiah on the porch, folder closed, wet paper corner visible beneath his hand. By noon, a notice would be taped to the same door. At 12:08, the notice was taped so squarely to Isaiah's door that it looked measured. He read it through the storm glass. Official violation packet. Failure to verify lawful occupancy. Exterior noncompliance. Refusal of emergency access review. The paper snapped in the wind. Mark Tiller stepped from a gray sedan. I wanted to make sure you received it. You taped one to the door. This is the courtesy copy. Isaiah took it. You drove here for courtesy? For clarity. Fines begin today. If the board doesn't receive confirmation within 48 hours, it may assess daily penalties. Continued refusal can trigger lien review. A lien because I won't let you inspect my kitchen? Because you refuse procedure. Procedure is not law. That is for counsel. They expect you at the office at 2. I didn't agree to that. No, Mark said, but absence will be recorded. At 1:56, Isaiah walked into the HOA office with his folder. The lobby smelled of toner, old carpet, and cinnamon air freshener. Monica Vale looked up from the desk, sleeves pulled over both wrists. Mr. Mercer? Yes. They're finishing another matter. Sit there. The plastic chair was low. When Isaiah sat, it squeaked enough that Monica winced. Across from him, framed rules hung in silver frames. Behind frosted glass, Karen's voice rose. We cannot let one homeowner perform ownership like a costume, Mark answered, quieter. He brought documents again. Copies. County copies. Then why won't he hand them over? Isaiah turned the folder on his knees so the damp corner of the deed faced inward. Cold air from the vent touched his neck. Monica came around with a paper cup. Water? No, thank you. She stayed. My aunt got fined for a ramp after surgery. Isaiah looked up. Monica swallowed. I didn't say that. I heard you didn't. The door opened. Karen stood in fluorescent light, clipboard against her chest. Mr. Mercer, we appreciate your decision to cooperate. I came to correct the record. You came after notice of lien review. He rose. The chair complained again. Inside, Karen did not offer a seat. Mark pushed one out. Karen slid a form toward him. Sign this authorization. We inspect, document, and resolve. No. You haven't read it. It authorizes entry with or without my presence. For emergency and compliance purposes. No. Mark rubbed his temple. Could we limit it to scheduled entry? Karen turned. Mark. Isaiah opened his folder. Deed. Tax payments. My wife's fire access consent. 1 page. Alarm specific. Revoked after repair. Karen did not touch it. Mark leaned forward. May I see the revocation? Isaiah slid it over. Mark read, then stopped tapping his pen. Well? Karen asked. It says revoked. It says requested. It says received and filed. The vent clicked off. The room held its heat. Karen took the page, glanced once, and set it face down. That does not resolve current violations. Isaiah closed his folder. Then we are finished. No, she said. You are. In the hallway, Monica lowered her eyes. Behind him, Karen's voice slipped through the closing door. Prepare the full access notice. If he won't open that house, we'll use what the association already has. At 3:18 that afternoon, the red light above Deborah Lowell's garage blinked through gnats. She was pulling in trash bins when Karen's white SUV rolled past. Mark sat beside her with a folded paper. They did not stop at Isaiah's house. They stopped at the pale blue ranch Mrs. Hill used only on weekends. Deborah froze. What are they doing? Her husband called from inside. Nothing, she said, though it came out thin. Karen stepped onto Mrs. Hill's porch. Mark held up a small ring of keys. Deborah's camera gave a tiny click as it adjusted focus. Karen tried one key. It scraped, failed, came free. Deborah stepped forward. Karen? The HOA president turned with a smile, already waiting. Routine verification. Mrs. Hill isn't home. That is why records matter. Then why test the lock? Karen's smile thinned. Please don't create an issue where one doesn't exist. Cut grass drifted from the lawn. Deborah looked up at the red camera light. For once, she did not delete the alert. At 4:06, Isaiah was in his kitchen, sorting HOA papers beside peaches Naomi had brought last week. The house held the quiet heat of late afternoon. From the hall came the faint tick of the old clock his wife had refused. His phone rang. Dad, Naomi said before hello. They called me. Isaiah set down the notice. Who? The HOA office. A woman named Monica. She asked if I could confirm whether you were authorized to occupy Mom's property. Isaiah closed his eyes. What did you say? I said it was your property. Then I asked why they were calling me. She got quiet. She sounded pressured. She sounded tired. Naomi's voice tightened. Dad, Mom told me once she thought someone had been in the house while she was at chemo. Isaiah's hand went still. She told you that? A drawer was open in the den. The back mat had mud on it. You were working nights. Did she write it down? She wrote everything down. Isaiah looked toward the narrow cabinet beside the refrigerator, where his wife's blue folder sat behind cookbooks. Naomi said softer, You kept saying the HOA was noise. It wasn't just noise to her. Outside, a car door closed. Isaiah moved to the front window. Karen and Mark had stopped near Thomas Reed's porch. Thomas stood behind his screen door. Mark held the key ring again. I have to go, Isaiah said. Dad, I'm listening now. When he hung up, he pulled the blue folder from the cabinet. Dust lifted from its spine, smelling of paper and lavender. The first page was in his wife's handwriting. Access concerns. Dates uncertain. Ask Isaiah after election audit. Across the street, Thomas opened his door a few inches. We're updating compliance records, Karen said. You don't need my lock for that. No one is entering. Then don't touch my door. Mark glanced toward Isaiah's house and saw him at the window. Neither moved. Then Mark lowered the keys. By 5:11, Deborah had saved 3 clips to a folder named Yard Lights. She watched the metal ring appear and disappear on porches where no one invited them. Her cursor hovered over Isaiah's email. Saw something weird today. She did not press send. Outside, the red camera light blinked as Karen's SUV turned back toward the house with the faded ribbon on the gate. At 6:04, 3 strikes hit Isaiah's storm door. He was rinsing soil from his fingers. The faucet kept running as he crossed the kitchen. Steam blurred the window. Dish soap cut through old paper smell, and a sliced peach sat untouched on a plate. Karen Wells stood outside with her clipboard raised. Mark Tiller waited beside her. Glenda Rose hovered near the steps. Thomas Reed stayed lower on the walk. Across the street, Mrs. Moore held a trash bag. Deborah Lowell's camera blinked red. Mr. Mercer, Karen said, this is your formal board visit. Isaiah left the storm latch set. At my home? At the property under review. My home. Mark opened a folder. We documented refusal to cooperate, unauthorized occupancy, and exterior violations. Thomas said, Possible is doing a lot of work. Karen did not turn. Step aside so we can inspect the entry area. No? The word was low. The crickets kept singing. Karen lifted her chin toward the sidewalk. You all hear him? Isaiah reached into his shirt pocket, not for papers, but for the photograph he had carried since the funeral. His wife stood at this same door, laughing while Naomi tied a ribbon to the gate. One corner had gone soft from his thumb. You received the deed, he said. We received disputed copies. You refused county verification. You refused access. Mrs. Moore shifted the bag. Plastic crackled. Glenda leaned toward Karen. Maybe counsel should answer first. It cannot wait. Every day creates risk. What risk? Unknown occupant, unknown condition, unknown interior. You know my name. A name is not compliance. Mark read from the page. Refusal of interior access may result in fines, suspended privileges, and lien proceedings. Karen's face hardened. This is the attitude we are addressing. Isaiah slipped the photograph back into his pocket. Address it by mail. No, you don't get to close the door and pretend rules end here. The rules end where my permission does. A phone rose near the curb. Another followed. Karen raised her voice. For the record, Mr. Mercer is obstructing an authorized safety review. For the record, no emergency exists. Mark lowered the folder. Isaiah, let us verify the foyer. 5 minutes. The first name made the porch feel smaller. You don't get familiar because your paper is weak. Mark flushed. Thomas stepped off the walk. I'm not comfortable with this. Then stand aside, Karen snapped. He did, but not far. Deborah stayed half hidden by her garage. Karen drew a folded notice from her clipboard. Final warning. Keep refusing, and we treat this as abandonment and protective intervention. This house is not abandoned. Then why does it feel so hidden? Isaiah's fingers stopped over his shirt pocket, pressed against the photograph beneath the cloth. The sprinkler coughed on. Water ticked across the pavement. Karen took one step toward the door. Isaiah did not move back. She looked past his shoulder into the dim hall, at the wedding picture, and the small table where his wife's keys still sat in a blue bowl. This is no longer your private decision, she said. Behind her, Mark's hand went into his jacket pocket and closed around something metal that chimed once in the dusk. The metal chimed once more before anyone moved. Mark Tiller drew the key ring from his jacket. 6 keys hung from a brass tag stamped Access, Echo Ridge. Thomas Reed stared. Where did you get those? Association file, Karen said. That file was for fire lockboxes. Karen turned to Isaiah. Open the door, let us document the entryway, and we all go home. Isaiah looked at Mark. Put them away. I'm following board direction, Mark said. No, you are holding keys to homes you do not own. A neighbor's phone rose. Blue light touched her face. Karen stepped closer. Do not dramatize a safety procedure. You came after dark with an audience. You created it by refusing civil requests. Isaiah's hand moved toward the latch, then stopped. Behind him, the blue bowl on the hall table held his wife's old key, untouched for months. He stepped back just enough that no one could claim contact. You may not enter, he said. You may not test my lock. You may not use any key on this house. Karen lifted her phone. Then I'm documenting your refusal. Document the whole sentence. Her thumb trembled once as she recorded. The occupant is refusing access under community safety provisions. Mrs. Moore whispered, Oh, Karen. Mark selected a long silver key. Thomas moved toward him. Don't, Karen snapped. Thomas, you are interfering with board action. Good. For one breath, Mark looked relieved. Then Karen took the key herself. Cold air pushed through the storm door seam. Isaiah's voice dropped. Last warning. Karen smiled toward the phones. You all heard that. I said last warning before you create a legal record you cannot undo. She inserted the key. Nothing happened except the scrape of wrong metal inside the lock. The cylinder held. Karen twisted harder. The sound went through Isaiah's chest. He looked past her to the photograph by the stairs, where his wife had one hand on the doorframe. Porch light made her face look almost alive. The key stopped. Karen pulled it out and tried another. Mark whispered, Karen, stop. If the cylinder changed, that proves unauthorized modification. It proves he has a lock, Thomas said. It proves concealment. Isaiah pressed his palm against the inner door. The wood was cool. Remove the key. Karen's cheeks had gone bright. I'm calling 911. Glenda backed down one step. Deborah Lowell came out from beside her trash bin. Karen, Deborah said, phone tight in both hands. I recorded you testing Mrs. Hill's lock today. The sidewalk stilled. Karen turned halfway. You don't know what you recorded. I know what a key looks like. Karen jabbed at her phone. Emergency services will sort out who is trespassing. The call connected on speaker. Wind pushed dead leaves against Isaiah's porch steps. Inside, the old clock ticked, and the sliced peach dried on its plate. "Echo County Emergency Services, address of your emergency?" the dispatcher asked. Karen's voice became smooth and urgent. "I'm at 118 Willow Bend. I'm HOA president, and we have a man occupying a residence, refusing access and behaving in a threatening manner." Isaiah kept his hand on the door. "I am inside my home." Karen covered the phone. "Do not interrupt an emergency call." The dispatcher waited half a beat. "Ma'am, keep your phone where I can hear both parties." Karen's hand came away from the screen as if it had burned her. "This man is escalating," she said. "He is blocking an authorized safety entry." "No one is authorized to enter," Isaiah said. "Sir, speak only when I ask," the dispatcher replied, but her voice had changed. It was no longer bored coffee and keyboard clicks. It was careful. Karen seized on it. "Exactly. We have board members here. Documentation. We have a master key." "A master key to the residence?" the dispatcher asked. "For emergency access. Is there smoke, fire, medical distress, active water damage, or another immediate hazard?" Karen looked at the porch crowd. "Potential hazard," she said. "Describe it." "He won't let us inspect." "That is not the hazard. Describe the emergency." Mark stared at the key ring in Karen's fist. Thomas folded both hands over his cane. Deborah's phone recorded, bright against the dark. Isaiah felt the cool wood under his palm and the rough seam where he had sanded the door after his wife's walker scratched it. Behind him, the house smelled of peaches and dish soap. The dispatcher said, "Sir, can you give me your full name?" Karen laughed once. "He can give you any name." Isaiah leaned towards the phone. "Isaiah Nathaniel Mercer." The line went empty. Not disconnected. Empty. The old clock inside the hall ticked 3 times. "Sir," the dispatcher said, "please confirm your date of birth." Karen stepped closer. "Why are you asking him that? I am the reporting party." Isaiah gave the date. Lena Briggs, 34, senior dispatcher on second shift, did not say the title flashing across her screen. But Isaiah heard the swallow. He heard the room around her get still. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "remain inside the residence if you can do so safely. Do not open the door until deputies arrive." Karen pointed. "You heard that. Stay inside." Isaiah looked at the silver key trapped between her fingers. "Dispatcher," he said, "please note that an HOA representative attempted entry after being denied permission." "That is false," Karen snapped. Deborah spoke from the curb. "It's on video." Karen turned. "Deborah, I am warning you." "Ma'am," Lena said, "do not threaten anyone on scene." The first siren rose from beyond Sycamore Lane, thin above sprinklers and insects. Mrs. Moore pressed a grocery bag against her chest. Glenda sat on the bottom step. Mark moved closer to Karen. "Give me the keys." "No." Karen. "I called because he made this unsafe." "You called because it didn't open." That sentence landed softer than a shout and stayed longer. Karen's mouth parted. For the first time all evening, no rule came out. Lena's voice returned. "Units are approaching Willow Bend. Caller, step away from the door and keep your hands visible. Sir, remain where you are." "I'm not moving," Isaiah said. From the far end of the street, headlights washed over the mailboxes. The SUV, sedan, hedges, faces behind phones all appeared in strips of red and blue. Karen looked down at the brass tag on the keyring. Access, Echo Ridge. The letters trembled against her palm while the first patrol car slowed in front of Isaiah's gate. The first patrol car stopped with tires half on wet curb. Deputy Caleb Knox stepped out, rain jacket open over tan uniform. Deputy Priya Santos followed, body camera glowing red. Lights slid across Isaiah's storm door and flashed over the wedding photograph in the hall. Karen hurried to the gate. "Officers, I'm the caller. This man is refusing lawful access and making threatening statements." Caleb looked past her. "Ma'am, step to the side." "I will, but you need to understand." "Side, please." Priya scanned the porch, keys in Karen's hand, Mark's folder, phones held low. "Sir, open the door enough to speak." Isaiah kept his palm on the inner door. "Deputy Knox, dispatch advised me not to open until scene was secure." Caleb's face changed. Karen laughed once. "He knows your name because he's been listening." Caleb stopped at the porch rail. "Sheriff Mercer." The street lost its small sounds. Isaiah nodded. "Deputy." Priya straightened. "Sheriff, we were not informed on approach." "You were given an address and a complaint," Isaiah said. "Handle both." "Yes, sir." Karen stared. "Sheriff, this is a private HOA matter." "It became a 911 call," Priya said. "Then take my statement." "We will. Set the keys on the step." Karen closed her fingers around the brass tag. "These are association property." "They may be evidence," Mark whispered. "Put them down." Isaiah said, "Note that Mr. Tiller identified them as association file keys." Priya angled her camera toward the tag. "Keys on the step." The metal hit concrete with a thin sound that made Mrs. Moore flinch. Caleb looked at Isaiah. "Did anyone enter?" "No." "Any contact? Any emergency inside?" "No." Karen cut in. "He refuses inspection. That is the condition." "Refusal of entry is not an emergency," Priya said. "It is under our documents." Isaiah's voice stayed low. "Careful. That sentence is being recorded." Karen's cheeks tightened. "You hid who you were." "I gave you my name." "You never said sheriff." "You never asked who you were trying to remove." Deborah kept her phone up, both hands steady. Caleb turned to Mark. "Who authorized use of those keys tonight?" Mark glanced at Karen. "Answer him," Thomas said. "The board president directed an access review," Mark said. "Written authorization here?" "No." Priya wrote it down. Karen lifted her chin. "I want him cited for obstruction." Caleb's jaw worked once. No citation for a homeowner standing inside his own home. "He is not confirmed as—" "Ma'am," Priya said, "we are standing in front of the sheriff's residence." The words did not explode. They settled. Glenda covered her mouth. Isaiah opened the inner door but left the storm door latched. "Preserve the 911 call. Collect witness names. No one leaves with those keys." "Yes, Sheriff." Karen's voice thinned. "You're using your position against me." "No," Isaiah said. "I'm asking deputies to use procedure where you tried to use pressure." Deborah stepped forward. "I have video from today. Not just here." Priya turned. "Stay close. I'll need your statement." In the glass behind Isaiah, his wife's framed smile flickered between red and blue light, and everyone on Willow Bend could see the door had never been only a door. Priya Santos sealed the keyring in a brown evidence bag. The brass tag showed through the plastic. Access. Echo Ridge. "Those belong to the association," Karen said. "For now, they belong to the report," Priya replied. Caleb Knox wrote names under the porch light. "Mrs. Lowell, you said you have video?" Deborah held her phone against her sweater. 3 clips. "Do not send them to anyone yet." Karen turned. She recorded private board business. Thomas Reed leaned on his cane. "You were on other people's porches with keys." "It finally is," Isaiah said. Inside, the hallway smelled of peaches. His wife's key sat in the blue bowl, worn dull from grocery bags and hospital visits. "Sheriff," Caleb said, then caught himself. What do you want done? Isaiah opened the storm door. Write it as if I were any homeowner. 40 minutes later, the kitchen table held only a lamp, a recorder, and the blue folder Naomi had warned him about. A draft moved the curtain. Ellen Price arrived at 7:22 p.m., county attorney, 52, with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses on a chain. Isaiah, she said, then noticed Priya's body camera. Sheriff Mercer. Homeowner is enough. Not for the record. Karen sat at one end of the table, Mark beside her. Thomas and Deborah stood near the sink. Mrs. Moore stayed by the doorway. Ellen opened the folder. The first sticky note was pale yellow, curled at the corner. Ruth Mercer's handwriting leaned left. Ask why emergency key still active after revocation. Isaiah's thumb stopped on the page. This is your wife's? Ellen asked. Yes. Karen exhaled. Handwritten notes are not evidence. No, Ellen said, but they tell me where to look. She turned another page. Violation letters. A photo of mud on the back mat. An email asking the HOA to confirm access permissions had been removed. 3 names were circled. One belonged to Mark Tiller. Mark's face went flat. I never entered this home. Nobody accused you of that sentence yet, Ellen replied. Deborah lifted her phone. My video shows him testing locks today. Mark looked at the floor. Thomas cleared his throat. There were meetings I should have challenged. I let Karen say legal had approved it. Karen's chair scraped. Thomas, be careful. He kept his eyes on Isaiah. Your wife came to me once with that folder. I told her to wait. Isaiah did not answer. Thomas's cane tapped once against the tile. I was protecting my own peace. The refrigerator hummed. Isaiah turned the page and found a blue sticky note beneath a receipt. Ruth had written one line in darker ink. If I am wrong, apologize. If I am right, make them stop. Mrs. Moore covered her mouth with the cup. Ellen removed her glasses. I'm opening a county review tonight. All HOA access records, key logs, violation files, lien threats, and meeting minutes are preserved as of now. Karen stood. You cannot take over a private association. No, Ellen said, but you called emergency services to enforce private access. That gave us a door. Isaiah looked at the blue note until the ink blurred, then slid the folder toward Ellen. Use hers first, he said. Outside, Deborah's upload finished with a chime, and every face at the table turned toward the sound. By 9:10 the next morning, the Echo Ridge Community Center was full. The room smelled of floor wax, wet coats, and coffee. A seal hung crooked above the microphone. Ellen Price stood at the front table with files, photos, and the evidence bag holding keys. Isaiah sat in the second row, jacket folded over his knees. Karen Wells sat beside Mark Tiller, fingers worrying the same cuff. Ellen tapped the microphone. It squealed. This session concerns emergency access, fines, and the use of 911 in a private dispute, she said. Karen leaned in. We dispute that. Noted. A thin man with a gray beard rose near the aisle. Pastor Samuel Blake, 61, Marigold Court. He walked to the microphone holding a worn Bible. My wife and I got a violation for a wheelchair ramp, he said. We were told medical structures reduced visual harmony. Karen opened a folder. That matter was resolved. After my wife stopped using the ramp. The microphone hummed. Ellen asked, Did anyone request interior access? Mr. Tiller said if I let him photograph our hallway, the fines might go away. Mark's chair popped. That is not how it was phrased. It is how I heard it when my wife was crying. Isaiah looked down at his boots. A dried line of mud had cracked across the left toe. Next came Marion Hill, 70, in a navy raincoat and white sneakers. She owned the ranch in Deborah's video. I wasn't home yesterday. I was at my sister's dialysis appointment. Did you authorize anyone to test your lock? No. Karen lifted her chin. Mrs. Hill had emergency access enrollment. My husband signed that after he fell twice. I revoked it after his funeral. Ellen raised one page. Stamped received. 3 years ago. A small sound passed through the room. Not loud. Worse than loud. Deborah's photo appeared on the screen. Karen's hand at Marion's door, Mark behind her with the key ring. Marion did not look at it. I thought I was getting forgetful. I kept finding the mat crooked. Isaiah's fingers closed once around the jacket. Karen stood. This is speculation. Ellen's voice stayed flat. Sit down. Karen sat before her next word found air. Then the 911 recording played. Karen's voice filled the hall. Dangerous. Occupying. Refusing access. Without porch shadows, the words sounded polished and cold. When Isaiah's name came through, the dispatcher's pause lasted long enough for someone in back to whisper. She knew. Ellen stopped the audio. We found 23 fines issued within 48 hours of residents refusing inspection or key renewal. Mark whispered. That needs context. Thomas Reed rose. His cane clicked once. The context is that I signed minutes I did not read, he said. I let frightened people sound difficult on paper. Karen turned. Thomas? No, not today. The seal trembled as the heater kicked on. All emergency access permissions are suspended pending audit, Ellen said. All key copies must be surrendered by 5 p.m. Any contact with residents about testimony will be documented. Marion stepped back to the microphone. I want my key in my hand, she said. Not in a box, not in an office. Mine. One by one, other residents stood, and the line behind her reached the locked double doors. At 4:47 p.m., the last key dropped into the cardboard evidence box with a sound too small for the room. Neil Hudson, the county auditor, was 48, square-shouldered, and careful with every page. 31 keys, 12 labeled, 19 unlabeled. Karen Wells kept her coat on beside the clubhouse table. Emergency copies were kept for resident safety. Neil stretched red evidence tape across the lid. Then the log should show which resident, which authorization, and which emergency. Mark Tiller sat with both hands flat. The log system changed before my contract. You signed the revised access policy, Neil said. You signed lien warnings after access refusals. That was administrative, Glenda whispered. Mark. He snapped toward her. You all approved the packets. Thomas Reed sat by the rain-dark window. I approved summaries. That is on me. But you prepared them. Karen cut in. This is becoming personal. Isaiah Mercer stood by the doorway, sheriff's jacket over one arm. It became personal when keys went into private locks. You want humiliation. No, inventory. Neil opened another folder. 46 complaints marked resolved without resident signatures. 23 fines after inspection refusals. 9 lien warnings before appeal windows expired. Monica Vale stood near the printer. I filed what I was told to file. Karen pointed. You had no authority to alter records. I didn't alter them. Monica's voice shook, then steadied. I copied them. She took a flash drive from her pocket and set it beside the sealed box. After Mrs. Mercer came in, I started saving originals. She asked for one receipt, and Mr. Tiller told me to say we couldn't find it. Isaiah's fingers tightened once around the jacket. Karen said, "Think carefully." "I am." Neil lifted the drive with a gloved hand. "What is on it?" "Original scans, emails about access renewals, a spreadsheet of fines linked to refused entry." Mark stood so fast his chair hit the wall. "Karen told me to standardize language." Karen laughed. "You advised the board. You wanted leverage. You sold us leverage." Neil wrote both sentences down. Outside, residents waited under umbrellas. Ellen Price entered with 2 deputies and a stack of notices. Effective immediately, the board is suspended from enforcement actions pending review. "Mr. Tiller, your management contract is frozen. Mrs. Wells, you will not contact residents about fines, testimony, or access." Karen lifted her chin. "And if I disagree?" "Disagree in writing." Glenda touched the pearl at her throat. "What happens to old fines?" "They are frozen," Ellen said. "Residents will receive review forms. No lien moves forward without independent confirmation." Thomas removed his hat. "I should have read every line." Isaiah looked at him. "Start now." The heater rattled above them. Mark sat down slowly. Karen reached for her purse, then stopped when Priya Santos moved 1 step closer. Neil carried the sealed box toward the door. The red tape crossed the lid like a warning no one could politely ignore. Isaiah did not touch it. "My wife asked one thing," he said. "Make them stop." In the hallway, every resident stepped back to let the keys leave Echo Ridge. The next morning, the keyboard in the HOA office was empty. Dust outlined every missing hook. Small labels still hung beneath them: Hill, Reed, Blake, Mercer. The room smelled of old carpet and copier heat. Ellen Price stood under the board with a legal pad. Neil Hudson sealed the cabinet where violation files had been kept. "No new fines," Ellen said. "No access requests. No inspections without written consent and independent notice." Glenda Rose sat at the table, pearls gone. "How do we run the neighborhood?" Isaiah stayed near the door in his work boots. "Start by asking instead of entering." Monica Vale slid resident forms across the table. "These revoke old access permissions unless a homeowner signs a new one." Karen Wells's nameplate lay face down in a plastic sleeve. Mark Tiller's laptop sat closed beside the notice, freezing his contract. Thomas Reed picked up a form. "Who receives complaints now?" "A temporary review panel," Ellen said. "1 county observer, 1 resident not on the board, 1 outside attorney." "That sounds expensive," Glenda murmured. "So were the fines," Marion Hill said from the doorway. She entered with her navy raincoat over one arm. Pastor Samuel Blake followed, and Deborah Lowell carried a small drive case. Residents gathered in the hall, shoes squeaking on the polished floor. Marion looked at the bare hooks. "Photograph that." Neil lifted his camera. "Not for gossip," she said. "For proof." The flash made the empty board shine. Ellen passed out the policy sheet. "Every homeowner gets written notice. Every appeal gets a date. No lien warning before the appeal window closes. Emergency entry requires active emergency services or current signed permission." Thomas read silently. Ruth asked for this. Isaiah's eyes moved to the label under the empty Mercer hook. She asked for less. What did she ask? A receipt. The office tightened around that word. Monica touched the forms. "I can print every receipt now." "Then print them for everyone," Marion said. By noon, folding tables filled the clubhouse. Residents lined up with old notices, envelopes, and check copies. The copier ran hot. Its white light swept under the lid again and again. Glenda took papers from people she had once avoided. "Name and address, please." Marion looked at her. You know my name? Glenda swallowed. Yes, I do. At 2:30, Isaiah found Thomas by the vending machines. I owe you more than an apology, Thomas said. Yes. I was afraid Karen would come after my house. She came after yours anyway. Thomas stared at the wet parking lot. Will you oppose me staying on the panel? I won't protect you from questions. Then I'll answer them. When Isaiah returned to the office, Monica was removing the last label from the keyboard. Mercer curled in her fingers. Keep this? She asked. Isaiah looked at the empty hook. For a moment, he saw Ruth standing there years earlier, waiting for someone to stamp a page and meet her eyes. No, he said. Throw it away. Monica dropped the label into the shred bin. The blades caught it with a brief, dry buzz. Outside the window, residents kept arriving with folders under their coats. For the first time, no one knocked before entering. 3 weeks later, folding tables were still lined across the Echo Ridge clubhouse. Residents came with old envelopes, screenshots, check stubs, and notices folded until the creases turned white. Monica Vale sat at one end with a scanner, sleeves pushed back. Name and address, Glenda Rose said. Marion Hill placed a folder on the table. You know both. Glenda looked up. Yes, ma'am, I do. She wrote them anyway. On the wall, the empty keyboard had been removed. In its place was a county notice, no entry without written consent, active emergency request, and documented resident contact. Under it, Neil Hudson's audit summary listed suspended fines, lien warnings, missing signatures, and required training for future board members. Thomas Reed stood by the door, handing out appeal forms. When Pastor Blake reached him, Thomas took off his glasses. I should have spoken sooner, he said. The pastor folded the form once. Then speak correctly now. Thomas nodded and did not defend himself. At the county annex, Karen Wells signed her resignation without ceremony. Her record access was revoked pending civil review, and she was ordered not to contact residents outside formal proceedings. Mark Tiller's management contract was terminated. His state license was referred for discipline after Monica's files matched the key logs and fine spreadsheets. Karen read the order twice. I was protecting standards. Ellen Price capped her pen. Standards do not unlock doors. No one raised a voice. That made the room smaller. Deborah Lowell's footage became part of the public report. She gave no interviews, but printed one still frame for Marion Hill the moment the key touched the lock. Marion kept it beside the returned revocation receipt because she was tired of being told she had imagined things. By late October, Echo Ridge held its first monitored meeting. A county observer sat in back. Every complaint received a number. Every appeal got a date. Emergency access forms were rewritten in plain language, and the old master key policy was abolished in a vote that passed without applause. Isaiah Mercer attended from the last row in a dark jacket and work boots. Naomi sat beside him, her hand around a paper cup. When the vote ended, she whispered, Mom would have hated all this attention. She would have checked the footnotes, Isaiah said. Naomi smiled at the floor. The next morning, the house on Willow Bend was quiet, except for birds in the gutter. Isaiah carried a new blue ribbon to the little garden gate. Naomi held the old one in her palm. It had nearly lost its color, the knot stiff from years of rain. You don't have to take it down, she said. I'm not. He tied the new ribbon beside the faded place where Ruth's had rested. His fingers moved slowly, not because the knot was hard, but because the gate had waited. The wood was cool. Leaves dragged along the path. Inside the open front door, the blue bowl held only his own key. A car slowed at the curb. Mrs. Moore lifted a hand, then kept walking. Across the street, Deborah's garage camera blinked once. Naomi touched the fresh ribbon. Does it feel over? Isaiah looked at the empty porch, the repaired latch, the doorway no stranger would be handed a key to again. No, he said, but it feels honest. He left the door open while morning moved through the house. If this story reminded you of a time when someone used rules to take away dignity, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what you would have done on that porch, or what you wish one quiet witness had done sooner. Share this story with someone who believes that fairness is not just a word on paper, but something people have to protect together. And subscribe for more stories about justice, quiet resilience, and the kind of systemic change that begins when one person refuses to be erased. Your comment may help someone else recognize that they are not alone, and that even a locked door can become the place where truth finally stands.